Standing in my kitchen, disbelief washed over me as I stared at my phone, never having anticipated a day when my own parents would express that my children were welcome in their home. Thanksgiving was just around the corner, and the lighthearted tone in my mom's voice felt unsettled as she said, "Honey, we need to discuss Thanksgiving this year." Despite years of tension, I still cherish the idea of family traditions which my kids, Emma and Lucas, loved, always adoring their grandparents. "What's the plan, Mom?" I inquired, picturing the familiar aroma of roasted turkey, cinnamon, and the warmth of family gatherings at their house. There was a brief pause, chilling me to the core. "Well," Mom's voice hesitated, "this year we're doing things differently. It's a smaller dinner, just adults, more intimate." I frowned. "So no kids at all?" Another pause followed, filled with uncertainty. "No, not exactly," she replied hesitantly. My stomach twisted into a knot as I sought clarity. "What do you mean?" Mom sighed, as though she was uncomfortable. "Ally, we love your children dearly, but they're quite energetic, and we feel it would be best if they stayed with a sitter this year." Grasping the counter's edge, I asked, "Just my kids? What about Daniel's?" "Daniel, my older brother, the golden child, who could do no wrong even when he did." Mom hesitated again, confirming my suspicion. "Daniel and Sophie are bringing their boys. You know how well behaved they are, Ellie. They're quieter, more refined, easier to manage at the table," she confessed. A surge of indignation and betrayal flowed through me. "They're just children," I snapped. "Emma is 7 and Lucas is 4. Of course they have energy, but they're sweet and adore you." "We're aiming for a peaceful evening," Mom snapped, her irritation growing at my refusal to accept. "It's not personal, Ally," she insisted. Clenching my jaw, anger rose in my throat at the way my kids were always overshadowed by Daniel's. "I can't believe this," I whispered, feeling the sting of being told my kids weren't welcome while Daniel's were. "Oh, Ally, don't be so dramatic," Mom chided. "It's just one dinner. You and Liam are still invited." The absurdity struck a nerve. They wanted us, but not the two people I loved most. Wallowing hard, I declared, "No. If my kids are welcome, neither am I." Silence filled the air before Mom exhaled sharply, hanging up. Staring at my phone, breath shaking, I felt the rejection. I could hear Emma and Lucas in the next room, giggling as they built a pillow fort, unaware that their grandparents, whom they adored, just dismissed them. Taking a deep breath, I reflected on how I spent my life seeking my parents' approval, but at what cost? If I attended that dinner, leaving my children to question why they weren't good enough, what kind of mom would that make me? Enough was enough. They made their choice, and now it was my turn. They'd regret it sooner than expected. The weight of Mom's words lingered post-call as I stood in the kitchen, the fridge's hum filling the silence, the phone still clutched in my hand. Trembling fingers set it down, and I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I'd always known my parents favored Daniel, but I convinced myself it wasn't as bad as it seemed, believing they loved us equally deep down. But tonight shattered that belief. They didn't even hide their favoritism, loving his children more. A carefree laugh from the living room tore through my thoughts. Emma and Lucas, oblivious to the rejection, played in their pillow fort, tightening my chest. They deserved better. I squared my shoulders, forcing a smile as I entered the living room. "All right, you too," I said, my voice steadier than my heart. "Who's up for movie night?" Lucas perked up, asking for the talking dog movie. I hugged him. "Of course, buddy." Settling on the couch, anger simmered within. Years of trying to fit into my parents' world, playing by their rules, believing if done right, they'd see me as an equal. The following morning, my brother Daniel texted me, "Mom says you're making things hard about Thanksgiving. Why do you need to make it a big deal?" I stared at my phone, my jaw clenching. She had already gone to him. I replied, "Oh, so she mentioned how she uninvited my kids but not yours." The typing bubbles appeared, paused, and then a reply came. "Daniel said she just wants a peaceful dinner, Ally. You know, your kids can be overwhelming." His words stung, as if my children were a problem to be endured, not cherished. Something inside me snapped. "Enjoy your flawless Thanksgiving, Daniel. I will be there." I shut off my phone before any further messages could appear. If they didn't want me or my kids at their table, then I would step out of their lives entirely. They were about to learn what that truly meant. Over the years, I'd been the go-to person, the dependable one. Whenever my parents needed groceries or faced Wi-Fi issues, it was me they reached out to. I was the one who organized family events, made calls, and did errands, while Daniel, the golden child, did the least yet received the most appreciation. However, if I were not part of their favored family, then they would no longer benefit from my presence. A week before Thanksgiving, my mother called once more. Tempted to ignore, I hesitated before picking up. "Hello, Ally," she began cautiously. "I just wanted to see if you reconsidered. We'd love to have you and Liam, but not my kids, just me and Liam." I took a breath. "I meant what I said, Mom. No kids, no me." She sighed heavily. "I can't understand why you're being so headstrong. It's just one evening. You know how much Daniel's boys mean to us." The confirmation hurt the realization that my beloved children would never fit her standards. "You've made our position clear, Mom. Don't expect us again," I replied and hung up, tears not falling this time. That weekend when my dad called for help with his new TV, I let it go to voicemail. When my mom texted about picking up her prescription, I left it unseen. For years I was at their call, always available, always dependable, but not anymore. They soon noticed as I missed a dozen calls and ignored 6 texts. On Thanksgiving morning, Daniel texted, "Mom and Dad are upset you're ignoring them. You can't let it go this far." I replied, "It went too far when my kids were unwelcome." No response came. I silenced my phone and focused on my real family. Emma and Lucas sat at the table with Liam, covered in flour, while mixing pancake batter and laughing. This was our Thanksgiving, the peaceful one after years, yet I didn't foresee the lengths to which my parents would go. Thanksgiving morning brought a serenity I hadn't known in years. No rush to dress the kids, no pressure for side dishes, no clock watching. Just us in our world with laughter, pancakes, and syrup aromas. Emma and Lucas took turns stirring, Liam flipping pancakes with exaggerated flair. At last, I felt liberated. Then, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. Ignored it, rang, and then again. Liam asked if he should silence it. I hesitated, then resigning, I answered, "What do you want, Mom?" She huffed, picked up finally. "Feeling sorry for yourself at home while we enjoy dinner." "Mom, if you're calling to brag, I don't have time," I sighed. She sharpened, "That's not it. Did you cancel the credit card?" The stillness enveloped me, and softly, "What do you mean?" "Your father's card for groceries, gas, it got declined. It wasn't theirs, but mine. Years ago, when Dad was recovering, and the realization hit me like ice. I had added my parents as authorized users on my account because finances were tight for them after surgery. My intention was to remove them once they recovered financially, but life got hectic, and I forgot. They didn't remind me either." My voice was tense. "You mean my credit card?" There was a pause before Mom dismissed. "Oh, Ally, stop being so dramatic. It's just a card. You're doing well financially." I felt my voice tremble. "You assumed I'd keep paying without noticing? You never mention this again." Mom sighed dramatically. "After everything we've done for you, supporting us isn't too much to ask." "Thought," I responded. "Even after saying my kids weren't good enough for Thanksgiving, you expected this?" Mom exhaled impatiently. "Exactly why conversations with you are hard. You overreact." I was calm now. "You're right. I canceled the card. Let's be clear, you won't get another cent." Mom gasped as if struck. "Ally, be reasonable," but I cut her off. "Don't expect gifts either. You made your choice about my kids, and now I've made mine." Silence lingered until Mom icily responded, "You'll regret this," and hung up. I just stood there, holding the phone tightly, until I turned, finding Liam watching. "Everything okay?" he asked. I forced a smile. "Yes, just taking out the trash." Without more questions, our Thanksgiving resumed with movies, cookies, and board games. For the first time in years, there was peace without stress or needing to pretend. However, deep down, I knew this wasn't over, which proved true shortly after. 3 days later, Daniel called, breaking the silence. "Ally, Mom's in tears. You cut them off," he demanded. "Did she mention using my card all these years without my permission?" I asked. A pause followed. "Then she said you were helping." I let out a dry laugh. "They've accumulated thousands, treating my kids poorly." "Cutting them off is extreme," he insisted. "Like excluding my kids from Thanksgiving?" "They wanted peace," he said. "Mom said they're too wild." I gripped tightened. "They're fine spending my money, but my kids are welcome." "You're twisting this," he argued. "No, I'm seeing it clearly," I replied. Silence before he suggested, "Maybe set limits like smaller transfers." I laughed coldly. "After they said they love your kids more?" He had no answer. "If you're being selfish, don't expect forgiveness," he warned. I shrugged. "I'll survive." Hanging up. Weeks passed with silence, no calls or texts. Perhaps they thought I'd return, but for the first time, I didn't crave their approval. Just as hope of them giving up settled in, They tried one last desperate attempt before Christmas. Liam found a letter in the mailbox, eyeing the sender's name with a frown. It's from your parents. I stiffened. Lovely guilt, manipulation, or something worse. Taking the envelope in hand, my stomach churned as I ripped it open, revealing a formal legal document inside. My heart skipped as I read the words. They were requesting repayment for years of emotional and financial support. Unable to help myself, I let out a disbelieving laugh. You've got to be kidding me. Liam grabbed the letter, quickly scanning its contents. They're claiming you owe them for raising you and for all the financial sacrifices they made for your well-being, he said, looking up with a tightened jaw. Are they truly trying to bill you for your own childhood? Apparently they were. They had even listed itemized costs, including food, clothing, school supplies, and medical expenses for my younger years. At the bottom of the page was a staggering total. $78,542. I blinked in disbelief. Do they really think I'm going to give them nearly 80 grand? Liam scoffed. They must be desperate. Slowly exhaling, I felt anger flame within me. This wasn't about money. It was about control, a final attempt to reel me back into their grasp. Looking at Liam, my decision was clear. I think it's time for a little visit, I said. The next day, clutching the letter, I drove to my parents' house and knocked. When Mom opened the door, her face instantly hardened. Oh, so now you show up, she said. Ignoring the bait, I held up the letter. Did you really think this would work? She folded her arms defiantly. It's what's fair, she stated. I gave a sharp laugh. Fair? You want to charge me for being your child while expecting free money from me for the rest of your lives. Just then, Dad appeared in the doorway with a smug expression. We sacrificed a lot for you, Li, and now you're abandoning us? I shook my head, staring at them. No, Dad, you abandoned me when you made it clear my kids weren't good enough, when you lied and stole from me, when you put a price tag on my worth. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. If you don't want to pay, we'll have to get lawyers involved, she challenged. Meeting her gaze unfazed, I replied, Go ahead. She blinked, surprised. What? Crossing my arms, I retorted, Take me to court. Try explaining to a judge why you're suing your own daughter for expenses from 20 years ago. See how that unfolds. For the first time, they seemed uncertain. Ed cleared his throat. We just thought you'd want to make things right. I laughed. Oh, I'm making things right. Right now. In front of them, I tore the letter in half, watching their eyes widen. I am done being your personal him. Mom gasped. You ungrateful little... Turning on my heel, I called over my shoulder, Merry Christmas, and strode back to my car. For the first time, I felt lighter. Driving away, it hit me they weren't angry about the money. They were upset because, for the first time, I held all the power, and I wasn't going to relinquish it. After shredding their absurd financial demand, I thought my parents might finally back off. Perhaps they'd sit amidst the remnants of their arrogance and realize they had pushed me too far. But people like them don't change, they escalate. It started subtly, a text from Mom 2 days before Christmas. Mom, Ally, this is ridiculous. We're family. You don't turn your back on family over a silly argument. I ignored it. The next day, another message came. Mom, we forgive you. Come to Christmas dinner and we'll forget this ever happened. I almost laughed at that. They forgive me? Then a few hours later, a message from Daniel popped up. Daniel, they're really hurting Ally. Just apologize so we can move on. Rolling my eyes, I realized that, in his world, I was the one at fault. I typed a response. Me, funny, they weren't hurting when they were stealing from me, or when they told me my kids weren't welcome. I think they'll survive. I sent the message and blocked his number. As Christmas Eve arrived, Liam and I finished setting up the tree. Emma and Lucas danced around the living room in their pajamas, too excited to sleep. It was perfect. Then the doorbell rang. Liam and I exchanged glances. No way, he muttered. I walked to the door and peered through the peephole. Sure enough, Mom and Dad stood there. Considering ignoring them, my eyes fell on the giant, beautifully wrapped box they held. Sighing, I opened the door. What do you want? I asked. Mom's face lit up with forced cheer. Merry Christmas, sweetheart. Dad offered the gift for the kids. I crossed my arms. No thanks. Mom's smile faltered. I lied. Don't be stubborn. Let's not ruin Christmas over this. You already ruined Christmas, I shot back, when you told me my children weren't good enough for your table. Remember that? Her mouth opened, then closed. Dad sighed. Come on, Ally. Let's just be a family again. I stared at them, feeling nothing but exhaustion. You don't want to be a family, I said quietly. You want me to go back to be useful. Their silence conveyed everything. At first, my mom's face grew stern when I shook my head, refusing their gift. Ally, don't be selfish. Think about the kids, she insisted. I replied with a cold smile. I am considering the kids, which is precisely why you aren't in their lives anymore." Dad's jaw clenched. "Are you really doing this?" he asked. I took a deep breath and said, "I already have." With that, I closed the door on them. That evening we celebrated the best Christmas ever. Emma and Lucas joyfully tore into their presents, their laughter reverberating through the house. We enjoyed hot cocoa, played board games, and watched Christmas movies until they fell asleep on the couch. For the first time, Christmas wasn't about proving myself, it was about us, our real family, the one we chose. A family without conditions, loving us because they wanted to, not because they expected something in return. I thought it was all behind us after being financially cut off, embarrassed during Christmas, and turned away at our door. My parents would finally understand I had moved on. Yet I misjudged their perception of control over me, as they proved me wrong on New Year's Eve. As I set up the snack table, I promised myself to leave the past behind and step into a fresh start. Our home was filled with laughter and music, with Emma and Lucas buzzing with excitement in their little party hats, counting down hours until midnight. Liam poured champagne with a gentle smile for us. It was our own celebration. Then there was a knock, making my stomach twist. Liam glanced at me knowingly while I walked to the door, took a deep breath, and opened it. They were Mom and Dad. Daniel and Daniel's wife Sophie was an ambush. I crossed my arms. "What do you want?" I questioned bitterly. Mom responded with her typical faint sweetness, "We just want to talk." "No thanks," I answered flatly. Dad sighed. "Ella, you've made your point. Let's fix this before it goes too far." Skeptically, I questioned, "Too far? What does that even mean?" Mom shared a look with Daniel. "We just don't want this to affect the kids," she continued, her tone unsettling me. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Daniel stepped forward assertively. "Mom and Dad have been talking to a lawyer." Dread washed over me as I repeated slowly, "A lawyer?" Mom nodded, eyes falsely sympathetic. "We're merely concerned, ally. You've cut your children off from their real family due to a misunderstanding. It's not fair to them." I pulse quickened. "What are you trying to say?" Dad cleared his throat. "We've been looking into grandparents' rights." For a moment, all I heard was the rushing blood in my ears. Then I broke into laughter, loud, unhinged, sharp. "They truly believe they could legally force their way back into our lives." Daniel's face twisted in confusion. "What's funny?" he asked. I wiped my eyes, retorting, "Oh, you're serious? You believe any judge will side with you?" Mom pursed her lips. "We've done nothing wrong," she asserted. "Nothing wrong?" I questioned, stepping forward. "You stole from me, treated my kids as second class, and now I cut ties, so you want to bully your way back in?" Dad's face darkened. "Ali, you don't want to do this." I met his gaze, smiling. "Oh, but I do." I pulled out my phone, holding it as I continued. "Think carefully about your next move, because I have every text, voicemail, and money demand recorded. Try this and I will bury you." Sophie gasped. "Ally, come on." "No," I snapped, eyes on my parents. "You have no case, and we both know it. Keep pushing, and everyone will see your true colors," I threatened. A pause of silence followed, then Mom's face twisted with anger. "You're unreasonable." "No, Mom," I countered with a smile. "I'm finally being smart." I stepped back and firmly shut the door, wishing them Happy New Year sweetly. They never followed through with their hollow legal threats, aware they had nothing because they knew they had lost. In the following weeks, I received nothing from them, no texts or calls, and for once I felt freedom. The weight and pressure of their expectations vanished. The relentless guilt and manipulation cycle ended. Months later, on a sunny spring afternoon, I relaxed on the porch as Emma and Lucas chased bubbles in the yard. Liam handed me a lemonade and sat beside me. "It's been quiet," he noted. I nodded. "Yeah, it feels good." He smirked. "Think they'll try again?" I sipped my drink, watching our children giggle as they popped bubbles. "Doesn't matter," I replied, because I had already won. I had my children, my real family, and I vowed never to let anyone make them feel unwanted again.